And we are on the air. All right, this week is a little bit different because Ned couldn't jump on. Hopefully, he'll be available in the next little while to get on, but if not, we will soldier on and see where we get. Um, so, since Ned's not on, I think I'm just going to go ahead and launch straight into all the things I want to talk about, and we'll see if that works out. Most importantly, this week, I want to talk about the Google Summer of Code projects. As I think at least a few of you know, we've had four Google Summer of Code students this year, and their names are Dave, Atcham, Mark, and Anthony. And from what I understand, they're doing pretty well. All four have passed their midterms at this point, which is to say, at the halfway point of Google Summer of Code, the mentors review what's been done, try to figure out if what's been done is enough to meet sort of the goals put together at the beginning of the summer, and also try to figure out if what's been done is enough to really get us to the home stretch for the second half of the summer. Sometimes this means there's a lot of coding been done in a big project already where there's been a lot of lead time well before Google Summer of Code. Sometimes, to some extent, that could just mean we've looked at all the code, and we have kind of a starting point. And for our students, there's kind of a split on that. Some of them are very far along and some of them are not. And for the most part, that's exactly how we expected it to be. So with that said, I guess we can just go ahead and go through those projects and kind of talk about them. The one that a lot of people have been asking for basically forever is, let's see, we'll start with that one, is from Mark, who's working on transcoding media. And so he says, I've got a little write-up of them, and you guys should be able to read these write-ups in the next couple days. We're going to post a blog post on the main Kodi forum about them, but just to give you a brief view of what's going on behind the scenes. Mark says, at the moment, the JSON RPC API can be used to trigger transcoding of movies in Kodi's database. A new version of the movie will be created with all video streams encoded in H.264 and all audio streams encoded in AAC. All streams are multiplexed into an MP4 file. For my test video, this results in a copy that needs only half the disk space at the cost of slightly decreased video quality. In other words, it looks like he's actually got decoding working. The way he's doing it is FFmpeg actually has decoding and encoding built in to the software itself, the library itself, and so when he I'm going to pull that document up so you can read along. But it's actually got it built in itself. And so when it's relatively simple to start up a transcoding project using FFmpeg. The problem is, he says, that there is no media player except VLC, which will play the transcoded files. He guesses there might be some missing metadata. Nevertheless, that's a pretty exciting sign. It looks like transcoding is already actually working and on the presses. The second half of the season will probably be trying to work out how to make it work better, how to integrate it into Kodi, if that's even possible, and so on and so forth. This is one of the projects where we're not really sure if it's going to integrate into Kodi at all, just because, I don't know, the overall Kodi architecture needs to be adapted moderately to fit into this. So we will have code, and we do at some point plan to integrate it, but when that exactly happens probably won't be August, and hopefully Mark will be around or somebody else will pick it up as we go along to really get it integrated. But still, we're frankly pretty excited about that project. The second project, boy, where do I pick next? I guess we could probably go with Achim. Achim. Sorry, I'm an American and I butcher every name possible. Achim's project is the one where the most work was done well before even Summer of Code started, because he's actually already a team member who just happens to also be in school. That's happened quite a lot over the years, and a lot of those team members do really amazing work over the course of the time they're with Kodi. Two of our developers who are actually started out as students are Sasha Montaleza and Tobias. I forget his last name. Top FS2 though is his username. And both guys have stuck around and done really pretty incredible work. Another guy who was actually a member, was added as a member after we rejected, which I feel bad about, but after we rejected his Google Summer of Code project is Garbear, who's the guy behind the whole Retro Player project. It's interesting to see how these things play out. Anyway, let's go to Achim's project. Achim's project, if you recall, if you read the blog post about it, was all about setting up room filtering, calculating the room sizes, and basically taking the need for an AV receiver completely out of the equation so that Kodi itself could do all of the necessary filtering and audio correction necessary to achieve basically the perfect sound for any given room. For digital correction, okay, now I'm going to go ahead and read what he says. For digital correction, 3 other implementation components are required. One is the implementation of a convolution engine to combine and compute the audio signal with a calculated room correction filter. At the time of writing, a first prototype for this exists. This add-on was written by me in order to evaluate the technical feasibility. The second and third component, I should tell you I'm kind of skipping over some stuff. The second and third component is the measurement signal and filter generation, which I want to implement in the add-on during his GSOC coding time. So it looks like he's doing an awful lot and coding tons constantly. He's actually got a blog post, and if you visit the GSOC subforum, which it was pointed out to me that we didn't mention what the forum's address was last week, so I'll go ahead and tell you. The address for the Kodi forum is forum.kodi.tv. And if you go down to development and then Kodi application, in the subforums under Kodi application is GSOC 2012. I recommend not posting in there unless you have something to contribute. But you're welcome to visit there and actually kind of read through all of these projects. We've pinned them at the top. And reading through them is really very interesting thing to do. And actually here, I'll go ahead and share that page since I have it open. So here's the forum. Yep, as you can see up at the top, forum.kodi.tv, it'll fill in the rest for you. And then if you scroll down, it's under development, Kodi application, and Google Summer of Code 2012. All right. So that's Achim's project. He says the next step will to be teach Parcel, which he says is the snake language from Harry Potter, which will allow Python scripts from a binary, which will allow to call Python scripts from a binary add-on, basically teaching binary add-ons to speak to snakes. Very nifty. He says it'll be awesome because it will allow anyone who is familiar with MATLAB or NumPy, SciPy, and Matplotlib to design their own filter generation scripts. This work is not only related to room correction filters and will create a new world for audio files because it will enable us to design FIR and IIR filters. You audiophiles out there might find that very interesting. I don't have any idea what any of that means. Hooray, maybe, I guess. Also, while I'm talking, if any of you guys have any questions, about what I'm talking about right now, feel free to mention them in the YouTube comments below. I probably won't be updating the Facebook comments anytime in the next couple of minutes. So probably don't comment there. Comment in YouTube. So that's 2 of the 3 projects. The other 2 projects, first we'll talk about the GSOC project from Dave. His project is to improve user profiles. He says we've created an overall use case list from the ones asked for. And I should say, if you visit the forums, let's see if I can tell you where this is. It's under feature request Kodi profile brainstorm in the forums. Dave, whose username is Philly Fan, has asked for all of us to list all of the different ways in which we want to use our profiles. Some of the really cool ideas have to do with implementing global profiles and making it possible for you to filter out movies that are not for kids in your kids' profile, all kinds of other things like that. So he says they've created an overall use case and decided a few use cases within the scope of the GSOC project. Remember, it's a project that's only accomplished in a couple of months. So anything that takes longer than that, and we're no longer in GSOC. So they do need to keep it pretty narrow. We began to work on multiple profile support. That seems to be very popular. Another feature being worked on is designing and implementing global profile settings, which also garnered a lot of support. And global profile settings are settings, at least as I understand them, that go from user to user to user. So if one user has all of his TV shows and movies, but wants all the settings from certain add-ons to be the same, then global profile settings would let that happen for him and his kid or his wife or her grandma or something. So that's that project. He says he's looking forward to continuing. Yada yada yada. Thanks and thanks for reading. So that's Dave's project, and finally we come to Anthony's project, which is an offshoot of Retro Player. This update is actually in the forums. If you visit the GSOC 2015 subforum and check out Anthony's project, which is, let's see, what's it called? It's called NVIDIA GameStream. Then you can read about this. But he says he's not quite at the point where he has a functional demo. He's currently working on the pairing functionality of the application. The way NVIDIA handles the library and streaming is done over standard web protocols, which means that his client is not only a thin wrapper for video, audio, and input, but also a mediator between the GameStream server and Kodi. So he's working on pairing all that stuff up. The gaming API, so he says he's found his way through Kodi's build system, which, to be frank and fair, Kodi's build system for new people can be labyrinthine. The fact that we support so many different projects can cause a lot of frustration for new developers. But he's found his way around Kodi, the game API, the Moonlight API. The game API is the API that Garrett or Garbear is using to develop Retro Player, the Moonlight API, and he's been running through the sources of the original Moonlight client. So he says there's still a lot of work to be done, but he hopes to get a demo out relatively soon. So, man, in terms of short-term use cases, I'm personally super pumped about the GameStream stuff. I have an NVIDIA Shield that I use a lot for this exact purpose, but it would be pretty cool if I could play if I could play an NVIDIA GameStream game on any TV or anything else off a Raspberry Pi or whatever all around the house. So Lord knows I'm pumped about it. So those are the 4 Kodi projects. If you have any questions about them, feel free to ask in the comments or feel free to ask in the forum. It's, whatever you want to do. So I have one more thing before my stuff runs out, and I figure I may as well just show it to you guys. So I'm going to go over and switch over to Kodi. All right. Okay, so I switch over to Kodi, and here's just a standard Kodi interface. This is running Confluence. There's nothing particularly special about it, I think. Yeah, I don't think I have Retro Player installed on this one. So now I'm going to switch over to the skin FTV, and I'm going to, yes, I would like to keep this change. And I'm going to talk about a couple things that I think are really cool about this skin, because it's a little bit different than a lot of skins that you're familiar with. If you remember looking at that Confluence interface, it does show some videos in that home screen, but most of the functionality exists outside of the home screen. And you kind of have to go in and pull stuff out from all over the place just to see it. What's really interesting about this particular interface is that that's not the case anymore. With this interface, all the things you really need to see are actually on the home screen itself. That's not totally true. There are some things that are missing, but the general idea is that you shouldn't need to click like 25 times just to get to your content. And that's an interesting idea that I think has been kind of making the rounds pretty much everywhere. It's let's see, let me switch back. Yeah, it's I don't know, ever since Kodi's been under development, back when it was called XBMC, there's always been this kind of directory structure where you start out with a home screen that doesn't have very much on it. It just has a list of folders you can go to find stuff. And I think that's starting to become a little bit antiquated. And I think there are skinners out there who are now kind of acknowledging this. It's coming to the point where that you do occasionally want to delve down into those sub menus and regular menus, but a lot of the modern skins, or at least the skins that are kind of thinking outside the box, are realizing that the best place for all of your content to be is directly in front of your face. A lot of it should be listed on the home screen. Back when JessX was developing Confluence and was developing Retouched, that was kind of a big point of his. It was both of those projects are sort of halfway points between the old way of having just a home screen that doesn't do anything, and the way Netflix and the Google TV or Android TV and all these groups do things differently, where they I'm being told that the stream is constantly cutting out. If that's happening for you guys, my apologies. Hopefully the recording later will be better. But if it's not cutting out, then totally ignore all of that. So anyway, what my point is that with Confluence, we started making this shift, and I'll go ahead and share that again just so you can see. We started making this shift away from having a completely empty home screen. Yeah. Oh, that didn't work. Let me try that again. We started making this shift from having a completely empty home screen to, yes. Okay, that time it worked. From having a completely empty home screen to having a home screen that lists TV shows and movies and add-ons directly on the front page. The thing is that Confluence and Retouched are both sort of examples of skins that kind of go halfway. With FTV, the skin, I mean, there's almost never any reason to leave the home screen. With Confluence, there's sometimes not a reason to leave the home screen, but a lot of times there are. And then there are a lot of skins where leaving the home screen is basically necessary because all you have are still those navigation icons. I think it'll be interesting to see this battle over the next the next set of years. I don't know how long it's going to take, but my guess is that over time, we're really going to move far, far away from the world where the content isn't on the home screen, which some people won't like, and there'll always be a skin out there that's completely minimal, where there's nothing on the home screen except for 5 buttons. Maxim Minimal, for example, is a really great one. By the Dead Man, I think is the skinner's name. I could be wrong about that though, and I could be wrong about the name of the application altogether. But my guess is that that's a little bit of a dying breed these days. An early version of it, created by a team member, Ronnie, was called. Oh shoot, what was it called? Man, I'm totally going to forget this, and I feel bad because I actually wrote a big blog post about it when I first got involved. Oh, Transparency. It's a fan art skin, and that's actually. So my guess is that the reason all of these really minimalistic skins took off was because way back when we didn't have the ability to grab all the thumbnails and put them on the front page without causing horrible lag and all kinds of problems. And so the alternative was to do things like what the original Aeon project did, where instead of having all of the movies and shows on the homepage, what you do is you'd have, the folder that says movie, and then a revolving background of the various fan arts for movies in that folder. Or alternatively, they'd just be revolving fan arts of movies generally totally unrelated to what you have in that folder. I think we've kind of moved away from that, the revolving list of fan art, and now the fan art usually has something to do with what you actually have in Kodi. But I think the next step is going to be, just continuing that push, pulling everything as much as possible up to the front page. The FTV add-on, the FTV skin is awesome, but it is missing a few things. In particular, it's kind of clear that, let me share it one more time. Okay. It's kind of clear that this was created with users in mind who are mostly using their own library, because there's no obvious way to get a quick and easy list of add-ons that people are using. And there's certainly no way to get a list of what's inside the add-on, though I think that to do that would probably require some kind of internal Kodi code change. But that would be pretty great. It would be pretty cool to be able to pull up videos and see not just a list of movies, of different kinds of movies, and not just a list of different kinds of TV shows, but actually to pull out the content from add-ons and see that. So, for example, the YouTube add-on, let's see. Let me open that up, in fact. Or, yeah, we can pull up the Rooster Teeth add-on. So the Rooster Teeth add-on, the latest Achievement Hunter episodes, it doesn't look great. It doesn't look great in this method. But the Rooster Teeth add-on has a bunch of lists, as it always does. Episode 251 fails of the week or things to do. It'd be really cool to see that add-on and those lists get pulled directly into the home screen, or at the very least, this list of add-ons get pulled directly into the home screen. I don't know if and when that kind of thing is going to happen, and really, frankly, this is just me spitballing after I was really impressed by the FTV skin and wanted to talk about it. But it definitely feels like a change in the times where this kind of skin that doesn't require you to click into folders to see what you have is just gonna kind of keep happening. Now let me double check and see if there are any questions or comments. It looks like there aren't. I'm gonna stop screen sharing. It looks like that we don't have any questions or comments from you 6 viewers out there. There were a few questions from last week, which let me pull up. The first one comes from Herc Zeus, who asks, can you please tell me which is the best system to buy for everyday Kodi use? The NVIDIA Shield Pro or the Minix Neo X8H Plus, or something else you think is better. He says he's conflicted on what to buy, and most agree from what he's read that these two are the best systems so far. But some say the Shield can't do everything the Minix can do, and some disagree with that statement. I got bad news for you, Herc. I've never actually used the Minix, so I don't totally know the answer to that question. My understanding is that both do have quite a lot in common. I was under the impression, and don't quote me on this because I could be totally wrong, that the Shield is the first device out there that has HDMI 2, which means that it can do 4K video at 60 frames a second. With that said, I mean, there's hardly any of that kind of video, and anything that has HDMI 1.4 that claims to be able to do 4K can also do 4K at 24 or 23 or 30 frames a second. So it's got most use cases already covered that aren't based in, I don't know, video gaming. So in that sense, I think probably they're both pretty similar. So if you're looking for a use case in either of those two platforms, what you might be better off doing is trying to figure out what else those two platforms can do unrelated to Kodi that you might like. For example, or maybe even a little bit related to Kodi. For example, the Minix, I believe you can launch directly into Kodi, where the NVIDIA Shield doesn't really work that way. The Shield is really more designed to be used as the Shield with Kodi functionality. If I was going to recommend another device that's a pure Kodi box as a device, I'll be totally honest, and right now, until we get to Kodi 16 that really implements all the VA API stuff for Intel, to some extent, I kind of recommend the Raspberry Pi 2. I don't use it all that much because I use a lot of stuff with my boxes, and I mean, for example, most of the stuff I do is on my gaming PC. But if all you want to do is Kodi, then the Raspberry Pi 2 is kind of one of the greatest boxes out there because it handles all that crazy video stuff. It doesn't do HD audio, but I'm not an audiophile, so I don't think that matters. And I am kind of a nerd about 3D. I might be the only one left. And it's just about the only box out there that supports a lot of the video, 3D video stuff that's, in my opinion, pretty cool. So I don't know. That's kind of a recommendation of mine. If you're going down that route, if you're looking for cheap embedded under $100, the Raspberry Pi 2 is pretty good. If it is over $100, then I think, frankly, either one of those devices would work. Though I should probably try to convince the Minix people to give me one of their Minix boxes so I can test it out, so I can actually answer the question validly. Maybe that's what I'll do this week. I'll email them and see if we can't actually figure that question out for you. My guess is, for Kodi purposes, they're probably pretty similar. So that's the answer to that. Oh, okay, there are more comments now. Let's see what people have to say. Back in the day, this is from NN Gute. Back in the day, XBMC was originally developed for the Xbox. How many developers did the team have? Are any of them still around nowadays? That's an interesting question, NM. The weird thing about Kodi development is that it's been oddly consistent at the number of developers we have. Back in the day, there were a lot of developers. There were probably between 20 and 30 developers back then. And today, there are still about 20 to maybe 40 now developers. The big difference between back in the old Xbox days and now is that in the old Xbox days, our flow was a lot rougher. Like, GitHub didn't exist, so it was a lot harder to deal with projects. And at the same time, there was a lot more work to do. Like at the moment, it's really easy to add an XML file and suddenly have total control over a new controller. All that didn't exist back in the Xbox days. So it was kind of a constant struggle to kind of get up to the point where the Xbox worked in every way you needed it to work. So back then it was probably not quite 30. It might have been 20 to 30, somewhere in there. These days it's more, but there's just so much more going on in terms of platform support that kind of makes sense. My guess is that the most developers we've ever had was somewhere around 2010, because at the time there was still quite a lot of work to do. And we were also expanding out into all of these different platforms, and that took a lot of people. At this point, there are a lot of active team developers, but a lot of the stuff in terms of Kodi itself is really just maintenance stuff, which I say just maintenance stuff, but that can be hellish. Let me tell you what. RD 1979 says, if you want some feedback, awesome show. Thank you. I enjoy a nice butt kissing anytime. RD, keep it up. If you want to keep doing that, that's fine. But to be more serious, what other questions are there? I know there have been a couple other questions asked. One person says he wants the hat. Sorry, we're not selling it at the moment. We really do want to sell it, but it's kind of hard to figure out how to get that to happen. And I think that's going to be it. I can't find any more right off the top of my head, so I think that'll do it for this week. So, NM, RD, the guy whose name I mentioned earlier, who I've already forgotten, thanks for your questions. Various skinners and other developers who are watching this, I apologize if I offended you in any way with my theory about what's going to happen with skinning as time goes on. Once again, this is just a theory, and frankly, I'm not a skinner myself, so it's probably wrong. Yeah, I think I just really like that way we're going. Maybe if it actually happens. And for everybody else, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.